Welcome to a game between RiposteR, here in blue, starting with a Cloakybot lab and a engineer commander with Ronin as blueprint, and he's starting with a conjurer as the first unit, and he's going against foxfaction, who also stars a conjurer and a Cloakybot fighter, but a guardian commander. So on this map, you um, usually want to do glaive spam. Glaive spam is kinda OP on this map. Wind is also decent on the high ground, but it can be annoying when it dips, so you probably want to build some extra energy there. And a pretty common tactic that RiposteR likes to do, and some other top players, is to move the conjurer over to this patch or this patch and reclaim this metal, which can be a decent way. Then the commander can stay in the base and build some extra economy. It's something that you should expect. So what you can do is you send the glaive here and then down here, and then you might scout the conjurer doing that, and then you might even kill it for free. Like for example, in this case, RiposteR has no glaives here, so if you had sent one glaive here, just as this is about to uncloak, you would see it and you would kill it. If RiposteR is taking care of his conjurer, he might not uncloak and he might go back, but if he's already uncloaked on this low ground and you see it, you can probably kill it, especially since his timing was off here and he wouldn't have been able to protect his glaives with his protect his conjurer with his glaive here. So as a tip, to always try to scout out this position. It's enough that you just keep if you send one glaive here and see the enemy conjurer, you can try to chase it, and then he has to like has to send their own glaives, and if they don't have enough glaives there and you outnumber them in that position, you can just overrun the glaives and kill the enemy conjurers. So it's something that you should expect from a player like RiposteR. So just patrol these areas, like send glaives here every now and then. It's a good path in a way. You want to check this expansion here and stuff like that. So RiposteR is being quite, instead of he's being quite careful with expansion and relying mostly on this conjurer to boost his eco while you're making mexes instead. You should probably set this conjurer on high priority, so it gets more priority to building these mexes than the commander here. And this is quite risky. Like if the enemy just sends one glaive here, you're gonna lose these conjurers and these mexes. So this is quite a risky play to do this. And RiposteR completely gets away with getting this 300 metal. And he's also going to go for this reclaim, which is interesting. So yeah, that gets him a hell of a bit of metal produced. Not much, but a little bit. And you can easily just deny this just by scouting these areas more frequently. And you should also consider the high ground and low grounds here. Like if you're on the high ground here, you have extended range, so it's very easy to deny this position, because even if the enemy, if you have 2 glaives here and the enemy has 3 glaives, you can just shoot from the high ground, maybe get a kill, and then retreat with 2 glaives, and you'll keep them. It's on the opposite. If you're down here, for example, and the enemy's conjurer is on here, you might catch it against the cliffs. Oh, and you're lucky here to avoid the imp there if RiposteR had been paying attention. And here you take a decently bad glaive fight. Yeah, it's not a good glaive fight. You lose a bit more than enemy. It's not huge, but still. Yeah, so you were a bit more clumped up than RiposteR, but not much. So yeah, you lose a bit more. But considering your you spend more, you're starting to outproduce enemy metal now, so now your economy is starting to kick in, but that's taking a while. Meanwhile, you have this completely unprotected expansion here, so yeah, should you risk it going for long expansion like this? Against a high level player, you almost got away with it, but not quite. It's kind of funny that he's starting here you get 2 kills, 3 kills, and you lose 1 glaive. Yeah, that's a decent trade for you. You almost get back in attrition there. But yeah, it's so hard to protect a position like this. So it takes a bit. Like RiposteR is probably more experienced with microing multiple units here than you. If you were paying attention, you would try to hide the conjurer here against the side of the map or something. Now you're gonna uncloak and you're gonna lose that conjurer as well. So that's kind of sad. You're lucky to avoid the imp here. So yeah, that's a bit of a big blow to you. So yeah, you were starting to get ahead in metal produce, So that's something at least, but yeah, you're gonna go into this position here, and the imp gets a lot of your glaives, so that was a really bad engagement for you. Should you dare to go in position like this, imps are a real threat on this map, so you probably don't want to bunch up your units like that. It's really risky. So now you're quite behind on army value, and you're gonna have to work overtime to keep up with this. And you also don't have any radar. Getting radar here on the high ground here is pretty good, and you see incoming units. And here you have, what's this trade? It's a pretty even engagement. But yeah, after you lose those glaives to that imp, yeah, so you're quite far behind, basically. So yeah. And yeah, kill the conjurer, somewhat of a concave, but you lose a few more units. You're gonna try to kill these units, and you're running back from the middle here. That was a decent trade there, at least. Yeah. So yeah, you really need to consider, like, how do you approach the enemy, and how do you expand across the map. As you can see, basically RiposteR is giving up this side of the map, which is giving you a metal income advantage, but you're also keeping this income completely unprotected. So that's kind of risky. I guess maybe RiposteR is underestimating you, but personally I would be sending out a few glaives in there. And this is a decent trait, like getting a forward reeve like this, that's viable. Especially if you're fighting like from the high ground, your glaives get extended range and the reeve get less range. So that's definitely an option to overrun it if you have the high ground. So this was would be a good position to overrun it before it got up on the crest of the hill there. So yeah. But yeah, this is definitely, you can just keep spamming glaives for most part, and Reaver's gonna take a huge time just moving across the map here. But that engagement, it turns out pretty evenly for you, and then you could wait for your glaives to regenerate health and maybe overrun this Reaver. Like, it makes a huge difference if the Reaver player isn't paying attention and just running into the glaives, or if they're retreating. So these are things to consider, like the elevation of the map, like fighting from the high ground down to kill the Reaver. That's a pretty good position for glaives to be in, and you're probably just gonna lose 2 or 3 glaives and make cost that way. So, well, if you're on the low gun and trying to run down the Reaver there, let's see, you have 23 glaives here. Yeah, you lose 5 glaives, so you're not quite making cost trying to run it down on even ground. And then you lose even more glaives. So yeah, you can overrun them, but it will usually come at a bit of cost, depending on the situation and if the rear is pulling back or not. Meanwhile, you have no defense and you have no radar. Like, a good position to get a radar in here would be here. That's also a good position for radar, so you can see incoming units, enemy raiders. Your base is pretty safe here with the solars and not winds. If this was wind, you would be in a really bad position now. Now you're gonna be pretty safe and you have time to react before the enemy does too much. Meanwhile, you choose to go forward, your commander, like you're creeping forward. I guess, yeah, like RiposteR isn't, yeah, he wasn't really seeing this because he has got this radar, I think, so he wasn't really expecting this. But yeah, a lone commander like this, it's gonna be countered by a few Ronins like this if you're facing a cloaked player. So it's a bit risky. Like, if you don't have Lotus turret to retreat back into, the enemy can like overrun you with 10 glaives. Do you have morph to your commander? No, you haven't morphed to a commander. If the enemy has glaives, you could go for a riot cannon or a machine gun. Yeah, to be better able to deal with glaives. But now you lose this whole protected expansion and the income advantage that you were getting. You were also accessing, oh, I forgot to say that you were accessing for a bit there. So yeah, that was kind of bad that during that time you were accessing a bit. So yeah, you can see that, yeah, you were getting ahead in metal use because you had this naked expansion. But you weren't getting good trades. So you can see here the army value here is still pretty even. And now you had to choose some decently good engagements, like total value here, the enemy's pulling ahead. Now that you lost your expansion here. So a thing you could consider with the commander here, like if for example a commander is here and you have like 5 or 10 glaives here, the enemy's position was at that point pretty undefended. It depends on what unit composition they have. If the unit is rolling out a lot of reavers or even worse, knights, then you're commander is going to suffer. But if the enemy has like just nothing here, you might be able to get in here before the enemy can react. Like if they try to spam Ronins against your commander, and then you have like 10 glaives or 5 glaives running here at the same time, that can be really devastating if they don't have Reavers or enough Lotus turrets up at that point. So that's something to consider. Meanwhile, the enemy is expanding. Yeah, like you can see here, the RiposteR was taking this expansion path with his commander as well, same as your commander, but he fortified it, and he was basically foregoing this whole expansion. He didn't even try to get expansion early game, so that's something you can consider, like just going on one side of the map and leaving the other side to be raided, for example. That's a choice you can have on this map, because this map tends to be dominated by glaive spam, and if you dominate the map by glaive spam, it's hard to protect both flanks yeah, basically it's hard to protect both flanks. And I could see that you were mostly not multitasking with your groups of glaives, so yeah, you really struggle to defend this position. It's hard to defend both this position and this position, because the glaives can concentrate and go on one side, and you could try to get in some cheeky ticks to deny the enemy, to get enemy glaives while they bunch up, but it's a risky play. So focusing on one side might be the right play. I try to go for both sides and try to dominate the map with glaives, but then you also have to consider when do you switch to Reavers, because Reavers can also be really hard to deal with. If you're spamming glaives, you might overbuild glaives and then has like 5 or 10 Reavers going towards your base, and you're gonna struggle to deal with that. So yeah. And now your base is basically exposed and you have no Reavers in the queue, so this is basically GG, having 3 Reavers like this and this many glaives coming up with you at that point. So yeah. And here you're running, this is a risk, well, you're running into an enemy base that enemy could have radar towers. As you get better on this map, like it's harder to do raids, because if you see the enemy incoming, on radar you can position the imps in good position, and you just need like 2 or 3 imps, and then you reposition them when you see the enemy incoming on radar, and you can, yeah, it becomes very risky to go into the enemy territory with a bunch of glaives, and you might need to spread them out, and yeah, it's a whole mind game, and it's also like how you approach enemy base, how much you spread out your glaives while you're trying to overrun position, and where the enemy glaives are. So yeah, like you could see that, yeah, like RiposteR was basically, he was not expanding as much as you, but his expansion was also a lot safer, and then he managed to keep even on value by concentrating his slaves and killing value, killing your expansion. And he also got a cheeky, this cheeky expansion. This is easy, this is super easy to deny. If you hold the high ground here, and you have to run over here and see the conjurer, well, you have more glaives than enemy, you just run down and kill it. If the enemy has more glaives than you could maybe stand on the upper edge and try to shoot them down, and then maybe retreat if there's too many and they run up this hill. You have a lot of options to deny this position. You shouldn't let the enemy get away with this. And if the enemy goes for this, like push, it's basically like, imagine there's a conjurer here at the start of the game, that's 150 metal. If you just send glaives down here, it won't be able to do here. Then the enemy has to pull his own glaives, and if he pulls his own glaives here, yeah, you would know there's something suspicious here. And you just send 1 glaive here to check this position, and you have the high ground here. Like, yeah, RiposteR's play is actually bad if you just counter it and scout this position and match the number of glaives that RiposteR has in this position. Then you can it's actually kind of bad play from RiposteR. But yeah, overall you could see that you were out expanding here in the end, but then yeah, you lost too much army value against some ticks and stuff like that, and your expansion was really risky with no defense, so while RiposteR's expansion was really safe. So yeah, I also tend to be a bit defensive with glaive spam on this map, because ticks are so good if you have radar coverage and can position them at the right place at the right time. So I also tend to be kind of defensive on this play and play similarly to RiposteR. So yeah, imps can bog the game down a bit early game. Anyway, those are my tips for you. Good luck and have fun.